What is going on, SHJ Army? We're back for another How Would That Superhero Train. Today is supposed to be a DC Comics day. We're switching back and forth from Marvel to DC because we've been getting a lot of requests, so I had to put in a platform where it's one and then the other and then the other, so we don't just go crazy. But instead, we're doing Moon Knight. You guys can blame Coach Derek for this one. He put in a special request for Moon Knight because he has written our Moon Knight routine on the site, and it's one of his favorite characters, and he specifically would love to have it for the Halloween special this week. So we made an exception, and we're doing Moon Knight today. Few announcements before we get started. As you guys know, I did the book club announcement yesterday, but today is the official day for it to start. Today is the first of the month, and that is going to be Blood of Elves, the first book in the Witcher series. I'm not going to tell you who it's by because I'm going to butcher that name. For the next book that I'm reading, I don't really know. After this one, I already started it, and it's awesome so far. Each chapter is like 50 pages, so it's a little different going from like Throne of Glass series to this. I'm like 2 chapters in right now, a third of the book through, and it's awesome. It's reminding me of like Lord of the Rings. I'm going to pick between Handmaid's Tale, because I had tried to read it and I couldn't do it on the Kindle, so that now the book is in. Or I'm going to go back to Throne of Glass with Heir of Fire, and possibly finish off the villain series with Vengeful. As you guys know, I read Vicious. Who knows? I'll give you guys an update once I finish Blood of Elves, but that's what I'm choosing between. If you guys want me to read something specific out of the 3, let me know in the comment section below. But if you guys don't know what this is yet, this is where I use my research as a personal trainer, a CrossFit coach, and a researcher of over 200 to 300 celeb and character workout routines to talk about how a specific superhero would train if he lived in real life, if he was a human, regardless if he has superhero powers or if he has just some enhanced abilities. This is how I believe he would train, specifically in this one, Moon Knight, in real life, and how you could do it too, so the things he would incorporate in order to be as awesome and badass as he is. We're going to go through some of the stats, we're going to go through some of the celebs that have played him. In this case, Moon Knight doesn't have anybody, so I asked Coach Derek specifically to fan cast 2 celebs that we could then look at in comparison. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's crack the monster, cue the music, and get right into it. So, I guess it depends on who you're asking. Coach Derek, I didn't specifically ask this question, but I'm sure he's going to tell us in the comments. You could either see Moon Knight as an expert mercenary, you could see him as a Batman ripoff. He is an expert detective, and he does follow a lot of the same traits as Batman. Coach Derek actually shared an article with me, 15 reasons why Moon Knight is better than Batman. Or people could just see him as a plain old crazy person, or possibly just an emissary of an ancient Egyptian god. There are some things that I want to get out of the way before we even get into the workout routine and into the stats. I'm going to be talking about some of the ways that Moon Knight would train right off the get-go as a mercenary and a vigilante. He is a Marine and a mercenary, and he is proficient in a lot of things, but in one of the storylines, he did have superpowers, he did have enhanced strength, so I'm going to go over some of the abilities that he had, and that he didn't have, and that he had again. Just basically, there's different timelines. He started off with no powers, had powers, and then went back to not having powers, depending on the timeline you're going through. So I'm going to name them all, and then I'm going to talk about the way I think he would train with and without them, what you would have to add in if you wanted to be Moon Knight with the powers. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, but I do want to start talking about the comparisons from Coach Derek's specific fan casting. So we're going to start off with Moon Knight. Moon Knight comes in at 6'2", 225 pounds. His real name is Mark Spector. And yes, like I said, he has had powers. He doesn't specifically have them right now. He didn't start with them, but his powers were increased strength, endurance, and agility depending on the lunar cycle. You get it? Moon Knight. He also, things that I want to talk about, his abilities. He also does have his abilities that are very similar to Batman, especially when he doesn't have his powers. He is an expert detective, and he's proficient in martial arts and armed combat. He was a mercenary as well, and a United States Marine. But, like I said, Coach Derek also fan-casted 2 actors for us, one of which I'm going to have to throw on the site now. Thanks, Coach Derek, giving me some more work to do for the articles. One fan cast is Jensen Ackles from Supernatural. He said at the beginning he definitely could be compared to Jensen Ackles. I didn't tell Coach Derek this, but I forced him to do another actor on top of that, a fan cast 2 of them, because Jensen Ackles, as we know, is the Red Hood. He actually just dressed up as it the last 2 years for Halloween. It's an ongoing joke in the comic book world and the nerd community. So Jensen Ackles, he did fan cast him as Moon Knight. He comes in at 6'1" and around 183 pounds. Which is honestly a pretty good fan cast because I don't think Coach Derek looked up Jensen Ackles' height or weight or anything. I think he was just basing it off of what he knows about him as an actor and what he knows about Moon Knight as a character, so that's pretty good. And we're going to also look at the second fan cast, and he gave us Jake Gyllenhaal. So Jake Gyllenhaal's about 2 inches shorter than Moon Knight, coming in at 6 foot and around 175 pounds. I think he's bulked up a bit. Judging by his physique, I think he's around 180 plus, depending on his movies. So I have seen him on the lighter side. I have seen him bulked up a bit. He looked absolutely amazing in Southpaw, so I think he looks a little bulkier. I don't know, he could have lost a lot of weight, but we'll give him a range of 170 to 185 pounds, which is another great fan cast from Coach Derek. You're killing it. I'll give you both of them. They are awesome fan casts. I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we got to compare. But okay, let's get into how Moon Knight and how I believe he would specifically train in real life if he was a human, if he was living in real life, if you were him maybe. So he is a badass mercenary. That's regardless of if you follow the timeline where he has powers or if he doesn't. That's why he's being compared to Batman a lot. He is an expert detective and he's doing a lot of the things that Batman does. I really, really, really like these heroes that incorporate basically everything. Mixed martial arts, parkour, strength training, bodyweight calisthenics stuff in order to support the mixed martial arts and the parkour and the fighting and everything that would go into being a well-rounded superhero. We've seen guys like Nightwing, Batman, Captain America, and Black Panther most recently would follow all of these routines all at the same time. So one thing I do want to start with is the fact that, like I said, we're going to talk about 2 different timelines. His enhanced strength and his enhanced endurance, that's going to be a little bit separate. He does have crazy endurance regardless as a mercenary, as a United States Marine, and as a vigilante in general, but his enhanced strength I'm going to talk about a little later, about how to fit things in with your programming. So first and foremost, I want to talk about a schedule on how he would train, because he would definitely be using bodyweight movements and calisthenics. He's definitely the type of guy that's holding himself up in a human flagpole. He's going to be able to do everything. One thing that I do want to say is that the bodyweight book, which myself and Coach Derek have been working on for a while now together, is dropping this weekend on Friday. It's going live. Moon Knight would definitely be working on his mixed martial arts. You're going to find at least 3 different articles on top of the Moon Knight article that Coach Derek programmed himself as well. What I do want to say is on top of the bodyweight calisthenics movements, he's going to be training with mixed martial arts. So you're going to combine both of those right off the bat. And he does know parkour, and whether it's called parkour or not in the comics, whether you're looking at guys like Nightrunner, for example, who specifically are called parkour, Moon Knight can move, so I'm going to link to that as well below, and he definitely can move around, and he definitely has high endurance regardless of the timeline, so we're going to have to incorporate running and endurance training and HIIT training and stuff like that as well. So for example, you might want to be programming 3 to 5 days a week of calisthenics programming on top of your mixed martial arts, but then also devote some time to long distance run or add HIIT cardio on top of your training, whether it's jump rope or treadmill or anything on top of your mixed martial arts and your bodyweight training. If you're not getting these ups and downs of high intensity interval training, then those have to be added in. A lot of the times in your mixed martial arts training, you'll have it there already, but if you're not, then you need to know to add it in. That's on top of your endurance training, which you could devote a couple days a week to, 2, 3, maybe 4 days a week on top of your other training, where we are talking about becoming a superhero. While that might be a little high volume, you could start with 1, 2, 3 days a week. Because we're talking about a superhero, I upped it to 3, 4, whatever it is. Endurance training, which we're talking about 3 to 5 miles, or start with 1 to 2 to 3, and then work your way up for endurance training, almost similar to training for a half marathon. So you're going to want to work on things like that. Now, if you're talking about the timeline where he does have enhanced strength, this is where things get a little tricky. Now you're going to want to incorporate weight training as well to heighten your strength, and you're going to want to start thinking about your calorie intake and bulking up a bit. Moon Knight is actually listed as 225 pounds. As you can see, that's about anywhere from 40 to 50 pounds on these actors that we named, and these actors look good. They look like they've worked out and they look like they're in shape. But he has 50 pounds on Jake Gyllenhaal's listed weight. So that's a lot of mass that he has on. You're going to want to increase your caloric intake, hit your protein, and also add some strength training in as well if you want to be exactly like Moon Knight. So maybe you're doing a 3-day weight training where you're following deadlift, squat, and bench press for compounds on those 3 days, and then hitting accessory work on top of that, and then the 2 to 3 days in between are active off days, MMA training, HIIT training, and endurance training. So you're basically working at 6+ days a week if you want to be really, really, really like Moon Knight, on top of saving the world if you want to do that. Maybe worship an Egyptian god. I don't know what's really going to get you there in order to recover from all these workouts, but if you want to be Moon Knight, you're going to have to do it all. He's such a well-rounded character. He really does do it all. He's literally listed as Secret Avengers, Avengers, West Coast Avengers, Defenders, Marvel Knights, Heroes for Hires, and the United States Marine Corps. While he might not be as big as some of these other superheroes, he is as well-rounded. So this is definitely somebody that's awesome. I wish I could get it out like a couple weeks before. This is a Halloween type character, but I wish it was out a couple weeks so you guys could send me in you guys dressed up as Moon Knight, because I hope this brought some light to how badass he really is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up. I'm sorry we didn't have like celebrity characters playing Moon Knight to clip in over what I'm doing, but I hope you still enjoyed the video. I hope I was able to clip in enough where it was fun on the eyes instead of seeing my ugly face the whole time. Smash the thumbs up button. Give me some suggestions for next week. We're going to do DC, and I'll talk to you later.